What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 4 top 36 running back rankings. If you enjoy, hit the like button, subscribe. We're 3 games into the NFL season. We can definitely take more and more away from like that sample size, what certain running backs' roles are. Also, defenses, how good they are against the running back position. So let's just dive right into the rankings. Starting off in Tier 1, I have 4 running backs in this tier. It's going to be Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, and Bijan Robinson. Now, I'd say 3 of these guys don't have the best matchups so far. The Jaguars, Rams, and Commanders have been pretty solid at stopping opposing fantasy running backs. So that's CMC, JT, and Bijan's matchups. But these are guys that their usage, their production so far, they are going to be locked in running back ones. For CMC, his receiving usage has been absurd. He's been targeted 32 times in the first 3 games. He's averaging 23.3 PPR points per game while only getting into the end zone one single time. So CMC is going to be my running back 1. Then I have Jonathan Taylor, and on paper, this is a pretty tough matchup. The Rams have actually allowed the fewest points per game to the running back position. But man, Jonathan Taylor's just been so good to start off the season. He's averaging 25 points per game. He's put up 29.5 and 32.8 PPR points in back-to-back games. At some point, you just got to trust your studs. Jonathan Taylor has been a monster. He is my running back 2. Then I have James Cook, 3 straight games of 20-plus points. The Bills are 16.5-point favorites in this game. Probably going to be a pretty run-heavy game script. I think James Cook will be able to get his. And then for Bijan Robinson, actually had a fine fantasy day considering the fact that the Falcons got shut out. He's still the running back 4 in points per game. Very strong, high-end running back 1. Now moving into Tier 2, going to start off this tier with Saquon Barkley. He's kind of had a slow start to the season. The Eagles' run game has been a little bit underwhelming. On the season, he's only averaging 3.3 yards per carry. I do think this could be a get-right spot here against the Bucs. I don't think he's going to continue to struggle like this. Bucs defense, honestly, overall team is kind of banged up at this point. So Saquon, I know it hasn't been amazing to start off the season, but still feel very good about him. Then I have Devon Achane, and on the season, he is the running back 5 in points per game. He is the running back 2 in targets, so he's getting involved as a pass catcher. The efficiency has come back a little bit on the ground, so I like him this week as a mid-tier RB1. Then my RB7 is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, and he actually saw some really, really strong usage against the Ravens. He took 69% of the overall running back opportunities. Typically, you're looking at a closer split between him and David Montgomery, and I want to say Gibbs might have had like 7, 8 touches or opportunities before David Montgomery even touched the ball. Like they were very clearly going to Jahmyr Gibbs early and often. Now, I guess the negative part of that is that when David Montgomery did get his opportunities, he certainly made the most of them, and he had a great game. On paper, this is not a great matchup here against the Browns. They're allowing the second fewest points per game to the running back position, but I'm expecting the Lions to put up points. They are tied for the second highest implied point total. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. This Lions offense is top tier. He's obviously still going to be a running back 1 for me. Then I have Derrick Henry, kind of, strong start to the season, week 1, back-to-back underwhelming games. He's had some fumbling issues. That's 3 fumbles in the last 3 weeks, costly ones, week 1 against the Chiefs, and then week 3 against the Lions. But this is still Derrick Henry. I'm not, in panic mode. It's not the best matchup here against the Chiefs. I do think, there are going to be some softer games moving forward where the Ravens are bigger favorites. They have not had the easiest schedule to start off the season, but Derrick Henry's still going to be a running back 1. I'm not panicking. Then I have Josh Jacobs. His usage has been really strong to start off the season. He's averaging 22.7 opportunities per game. The problem is he's just been very inefficient on those opportunities, only 3.1 yards per carry. I do think this could be a get-right spot here. The Packers are tied for the second highest implied point total. This Cowboys defense really isn't scaring anyone. I could see this being like a multi-touchdown game, and then you're just hoping the efficiency kind of bounces back up. Another guy who struggled in the efficiency department is Bucky Irving. He's had some really solid usage on the ground. He has 56 carries, 14 targets on the season, but he's only averaging 3.1 yards per carry. This Bucs offensive line has been banged up. They did get Tristan Wirfs back, which should be big, but I want to say they're missing either both of their guards or a tackle and a guard. I know Cody Mauch is out for the season. I think Gedeke is still banged up, so not ideal there for Bucky Irving, but the usage is still solid. This will be a fine offense. Also not the best matchup against the Eagles. And then the last guy in this tier, kind of been a roller coaster start to the season for Amari Hampton. He comes out week 1, really strong usage, but the production doesn't really follow. Then you head into week 2. He's in a pretty solid split with Najee Harris. It's not looking great. Then in week 3, obviously, unfortunately for Najee Harris, he goes out. He tears his Achilles, obviously just a brutal injury. You never want to see that. But Amari Hampton steps in and takes advantage of that opportunity. He's the workhorse, 19 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. He gets involved as a pass catcher, 7 targets, 6 receptions for 59 yards. And then he gets a nice matchup here against the Giants, who have allowed the 4th most points per game to the running back position. Things are looking very good moving forward for Amari Hampton. Now, moving into tier 3, going to start off with Kyren Williams. He's coming off his best game of the season, despite a tough matchup on paper against the Eagles. 19.2 PPR points, had an efficient day on the ground. The Rams actually project really well per Vegas in this matchup against the Colts. They have the 4th highest implied point total. I do think we're seeing, though, early on in the season, like Blake Corum is going to be a factor. He's going to be much more involved than he was last season, which is not ideal, but Kyren is still going to be in like this, fringe running back 1 range. Then I have Jordan Mason going up against the Steelers. I mean, this was just a massacre for the Vikings going up against the Bengals. Mason, didn't need to be playing super late into this game, but got it done early on the ground. 16 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. I do think he's just going to handle a really solid workload in this offense. And this is a talented unit. I think just having Carson Wentz in there to kind of manage the game could be the best thing for this offense, at least in the short term. Then I have J.K. Dobbins. This is just a smash matchup here against the Bengals. The Broncos are 7.5-point favorites. Dobbins has just logged 3 really solid games, scoring touchdowns in all 3. He's averaging 15.2 points per game. And then the Bengals are allowing the 2nd most points per game to the running back position. So Dobbins has looked good. It's a great matchup. And I think game script wise, it also goes in the favor of J.K. Dobbins, who can be that early down guy, racking up a lot of work on the ground. My running back 15 is going to be Chuba Hubbard. Nothing super notable in week 3. On the season, he's the running back 11 in points per game. It'll be interesting to see how this offense looks against the Patriots. I thought they were going to struggle against the Falcons. That was a team that did give J.J. McCarthy a lot of fits, really applied pressure to the quarterback. The Panthers' O-line is banged up, they had multiple starters go on IR, but, they weathered the storm pretty well in week 3. I'm interested to see how they look here in week 4 in potentially a more competitive matchup. Then I'm going to go with Travis Etienne going up against the Niners. So far, he is averaging 15.7 PPR points per game. On paper, not the best matchup against the Niners. They've allowed the 7th fewest points per game to the running back position. But, as what seems to be the case every year, the Niners are banged up. Joey Bosa now out for the season. And then my final player here in tier 3 is going to be Breece Hall. Now, he's kind of been rough in back-to-back games, under 10 PPR points in both of them. I do think this could be a get-right spot for him. You're obviously hoping you get Justin Fields back. I do think the threat of Fields' legs will kind of open some things up for Breece Hall. And then matchup-wise, this is just a nice spot. The Dolphins are allowing the 5th most points per game to the running back position. I am not scared at all of this Dolphins defense. If, Fields plays, and even if he doesn't play, I still think Breece Hall can have a bounce-back performance here in week 3. Then moving into tier 4, these are our mid to back end wide receiver 2s. I'm going to start it off with someone who has been a massive disappointment, and that is Ashton Genty. Through 3 weeks, he's averaging 8.6 PPR points per game. He's only averaging 3.1 yards per carry. And I think arguably the most, disappointing number is that he's only been targeted 6 times. When you were looking at Ashton Genty and kind of projecting him, you understood that maybe the efficiency wouldn't be great. This was not projected to be a super strong offensive line, but this was a guy who in college, not his final season, but the one before, had put together a truly great receiving season. And so the fact that he is not getting targeted out of the backfield is pretty rough. I do think this could be a get-right spot here. This Bears defense is not scary. They're allowing the 6th most points per game to the running back position, so I can no longer, rank Genty anywhere near running back 1 status. Some people might think this is still too high, putting him ahead of guys like Kamara, Warren, Javonte, even a Benson or a Judkins, but I still believe in the talent. The usage is still there. Obviously, I would be panicking if I drafted him 1-2 turn, but I still think he's going to be a very solid fantasy option. moving forward. Then I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara, and his usage has been solid, like 20 opportunities per game. It just hasn't led to great production. Like I talked about with James Cook, I want to say it's like 16.5-point dogs, which is just a crazy line. You would like to see him get a little bit more involved as a pass catcher. That's really how he's been productive over the last few seasons, is he's kind of just been like a PPR scam where he's going to inefficiently, catch a ton of passes, rack up some receiving yards. That really hasn't been the case so far this season. This certainly could be the game script where that could happen. Then I'm going to go with Jaylen Warren going up against the Vikings. Warren's week 3 usage was awesome, where week 1, we were getting like these weird Kenneth Gainwell snaps, Gainwell leads in snap share. Then week 2, we see Warren kind of improve on his role. Then week 3, he just jumps all the way up to an 83% opportunity share. The issue here in this matchup is just that this Vikings defense is tough. The Steelers are only projected 19 implied points from Vegas, so that's not ideal. But Warren's someone who can get involved as a pass catcher. He looks like he's going to have a strong role moving forward, like him as a running back too. Then I'm going to go with Javonte Williams. First off, just a tough matchup here against the Packers, but we also saw his usage kind of take a hit in week 3, where week 1, week 2, he looked like the clear-cut running back 1, potential workhorse. Week 3, his opportunity share falls to 56%, and we got a lot more of Miles Sanders, so that's not great. Still think he's playable as a running back too, but you were kind of banking on that really strong usage. Then I'm going to go with Trey Benson. Obviously, he is the main beneficiary of the James Conner season-ending injury. I do think he's going to step into that clear-cut RB1 role. I think the jury's still out on just like how talented and how good of a player Trey Benson is, but the opportunities will be there. I think starting him off as like a back-end running back too is a fair ranking. Then we have Quinshon Judkins, who is coming off a super impressive week 3. Week 2, first game active, had a pretty solid role, looked good. He goes out week 3 and is pretty much the workhorse. He took 19 of the 24 running back opportunities. Dylan Sampson was like pretty much a non-factor, and he was efficient on the ground against the Green Bay Packers. 18 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown. This is not a great matchup here against the Lions, and I still think overall, like, this Browns offense is going to struggle, but Judkins looked great. If he can log another strong game, even in a pretty rough offensive environment, I will have to move him up moving forward. But I do think he's playable. He's my running back 23 this week. And then the final player in this tier is going to be Kenneth Walker. Now, I'm doing these rankings with the assumption that Zach Charbonnet is going to be back. When the Seahawks released like their projected, practice injury report, he was a full participant or projected full on Monday. So that tells me he's probably going to play in their week 4 game. And I know some people after week 2, even before Zach Charbonnet was announced to be out, they thought that Kenneth Walker had just completely overtaken the RB1 spot, and that was going to be like a huge launch pad. He was going to have a monster week 4 and, or week 3, and Zach Charbonnet wasn't going to be super involved. I was a little bit more hesitant, not even that I just think like Walker shouldn't be that guy, but we have to remember week 1, Zach Charbonnet had the better game, right? He was the more efficient option. Kenneth Walker laid an egg, and they still went back to the well with very similar usage. As you can tell by the rankings, I do prefer Kenneth Walker this week, but I still think if Charbonnet's playing and healthy, we're going to see a pretty solid split between these dudes. And even though Walker had a decent fantasy day scoring 2 touchdowns, I wouldn't say like averaging 2 yards per carry in week 3 is like this amazing performance that's going to continue to push him ahead of Zach Charbonnet. So I think both are involved. Still lean Walker, but not overly bullish on his usage here heading into week 4. Then shifting into tier 5, we're going to start off with a pretty depressing situation here with Chase Brown going up against the Broncos. I feel like when people drafted Chase Brown, they kind of knew that this was a potential outcome where he was not a running back, at least in my opinion, who was drafted because he is some sort of elite talent who is going to be a monster in any situation. He was drafted because he had workhorse upside on an offense that, if it stayed healthy, specifically at the quarterback position, was going to be one of the highest scoring units in the NFL. And unfortunately, right, a risk of that is if they don't stay healthy and Burrow goes down, all of a sudden Chase Brown is going to be nowhere near as valuable. I don't really think he's a bad pick, at where he went. Like, I think if you simulate the season 100 times, I think he pans out a fair amount if Burrow stays healthy. Based on the usage we saw early on in the season, like Chase Brown was going to be a really, really strong running back. The problem now, though, is that the Bengals went out and just looked awful in week 3. Through 3 games, Chase Brown has 47 carries and has not hit 100 yards. He's at 93 yards on 47 attempts. So that is brutal. Now you don't get the offensive bump. Teams are able to stack the box more because they don't trust the quarterback position. Like, the vibes are pretty low here for Chase Brown. Now, he still is going to get really strong usage, potential workhorse. And I do think, like, the Bengals went out, obviously they laid a complete egg in week 3, first game without Burrow. I feel like the overreaction is a little bit extreme. I'm kind of going to compare it to the Dolphins week 1, where the Dolphins go out, they look awful in week 1. All of a sudden, everyone is in full-blown panic mode, like, oh my gosh, this offense is terrible. Everyone's going to suck. Waddle, Hill, all wasted picks. My take was kind of like, yeah, I don't think this team is good, but I'm still kind of willing to buy low on those weapons. Since then, Waddle's logged 2 solid games. Tyreek Hill has looked good. And so I'm not saying this Bengals team is completely toast. Chase Brown being a workhorse, even on a not so great offense, is still going to be valuable for fantasy. Now, it's not a great matchup here against the Broncos. I want to say their next few games also aren't that much better. But Chase Brown is not someone who's just completely worthless at this point. I know it's been bad. Week 3 was tough. This week, he's like a fringe running back 2 for me. Then I'm going to go with Cam Scatterbo. And if this wasn't, such a tough matchup against the Chargers, he would be a lot higher. The Giants are only implied 19 points. The Chargers have allowed the 5th fewest points per game to the running back position. But Cam Scatterbo is coming off a breakout week 3. He already kind of had a breakout week 2. We did see a lot of Tyrone Tracy early on in week 3, but he goes down with the dislocated shoulder. Scatterbo steps in, 10 carries for 60 yards, 8 targets, 6 receptions for 61 yards. As I'm kind of going through this, I'm really considering putting Scatterbo over Chase Brown. They're kind of back-to-back. Both are going to have strong usage. I think I might actually flip Scatterbo with Chase Brown. I just think the situation's more interesting. He can get involved as a pass catcher, so that's a shift I'll make right here. But Scatterbo, not a great matchup. I do think he's someone, though, that will be considered a top 24 running back moving forward. Then I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift going up against the Raiders. He's been fine, solid usage, 14 carries, 4 targets per game. Hasn't led to amazing fantasy production, but high-end running back 3, I think that's all right. Then I have Tony Pollard. He finally got into the end zone in week 3. That was good to see. This Titans offense is just really, really bad. They have 15.5 implied points this week against the Texans. That is a brutal number. So the weekly ceiling is just low because of this offense, but the usage continues to be solid. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be David Montgomery. Like I talked about with Jahmyr Gibbs took a huge share of this backfield. David Montgomery only a 31% opportunity share, but he certainly made the most of those opportunities. 12 carries for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also caught a pass for 13 yards. Also, like I mentioned with Gibbs, it's a bad matchup here against the Browns. They've been really tough against opposing running backs. And so this is not a matchup where I'm super bullish on David Montgomery. So I have him as a mid-tier running back 3. And then the 6th and final tier, this is kind of like the committee situations. I have Zach Charbonnet leading off this tier. Like I talked about, he was a projected full participant on Monday. We have seen a very solid split early on in the season, even a split where Zach Charbonnet is getting some of the more valuable opportunities. So I don't think he's completely toast. If he can come back, get healthy, I think he'll be a fine option this week. Then I have the Patriots running backs with Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. And as someone who was very in on Henderson coming into the season, both from a dynasty and a redraft perspective, this has been a very, very frustrating start to the season where the Patriots spend elite draft capital on a running back. Early round 2 pick, that is significant. He goes out week 1, has fine usage, decent production. I know he had a few slip-ups in pass pro, but that really was his strength coming into the NFL. It's week 1, right? His first pro game. Then we go week 2, and he's pretty much a non-factor. You're getting Ramondre and Antonio Gibson ahead of him, and it takes Ramondre fumbling twice and Antonio Gibson fumbling once to get this guy you spent elite draft capital on to actually get involved in the offense. That's crazy to me. He did end up leading in snaps, routes, carries, targets. but I just don't trust that they actually want to go back to him in week 4. You'd think that was the case. Like if this was Bill Belichick still as the coach, I mean, we'd be talking about Travion Henderson locked in running back one rest of season because Ramondre might not even be allowed in the facility after fumbling twice. But obviously, it's a different coaching staff. It's just kind of up in the air. Like I can't confidently say one guy is going to be better this week just because the usage is just such a toss up. The Patriots are the 8th highest implied point total team going up against the Panthers. So this should be a favorable matchup here. We just don't know what the usage is going to look like. After those two, I have Nick Chubb going up against the Titans. They're 7.5-point favorites in this game, should be getting their first win this week. And then the Titans are allowing a ton of points to the running back position, 3rd most points per game so far. Then I have the Chiefs running backs, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. This is not a good run game. It's a gross split. It's pretty much 50-50. So both these guys are back in RB1s. And then we have Bill Krosky-Merritt, someone who people keep getting excited about. As of right now, the Commanders are just not playing him like he is some sort of difference-making running back. He split the early downs and the goal line work with C-Rod, hasn't really pulled away. So as of right now, tough to get super excited about him. I do believe he got into the end zone, so maybe he's got some touchdown upside, but it's just a very, very gross committee that I'd ideally not be touching at this point. But that is going to wrap it up for my top 36 running backs this week. If you guys enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.